commissioner, please respond with a here when I call out their name. Commissioner Doan?
Here.
Commissioner Duggan?
Here.
Commissioner Lysick?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
We'll begin with reports by the Chief Executive and Management Staff.
Well, good evening, President Fisher and Commissioners. We're going to have a little bit of a change up here tonight as we go through the CEO management report. Andrew Carlstrom, our customer service director, is going to give the director's report, but he's a little ill, so he's going to be doing that from home. And Pete's actually going to step in and give us a little update on the winter storm and some of the activities that we've had in the district with the high wind that we've had. But we'll start off first with some good news on the EPA grant front. So you might recall that the district received a $4 million congressionally directed spending grant over the past 2 years, 22 and 23. Well, we finally got those through the EPA system. We've got the notice from the EPA that the award is in place. And in fact, we should be seeing that come through in about 120 days. So this is after 2 years of working with the EPA, working through government shutdowns and everything else that has happened in order to get that grant finally fully funded. So this was obviously came from our congressional delegation to help offset the cost of the Willamette water supply system. So that's in place, and that's a great feature. Give you a couple project updates. The first is on Todd and Linda Lane main replacement. This is a main replacement up in the Marlene Village area of the district, which is up by Highway 26 on the west side of Murray Boulevard. We've had a competitive bids have just come through. In fact, today we finalized that notice of intent to award. That has provided some significant cost savings to the district, but we also qualified for a community development block grant, and that's because that particular area is a low-income area of the district, and we're able to use that to get funding from through the county for the community development block grant. So all that will ensure that we can provide cost-effective service to that area of the district. So that's good news there. And then on Multnomah Boulevard, we have the valve pressure test that had passed, and this is, again, another further development. This is an area that we actually cooperated with the city of Portland on. And this is an important part of getting the system prepared to accept water from the Willamette water supply system. So we're able to test the operational conditions and get that facility ready to go. So another movement towards our progress with the Willamette water supply system readiness. And with that, the next thing was just something we added, wasn't in the PowerPoint that was delivered to you last night, is an update that Pete's going to give us on this Wednesday morning storm. Pete, do you want to take her away?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Good evening, President Fisher, commissioners. Yeah, Paul asked me to give an update on the storm that you all probably experienced last night, and our customers certainly did. A lot of folks that I talked to throughout today were awake at 1:30 a.m. last night because of the high winds. And that included our distribution duty operator. So we always have 3 folks on duty overnight and on the weekends. And one of them is this distribution role. So you can see the things they're responsible for. It's SCADA, it's really operating the water system, managing water supply, the pump stations, all those things, and emergency locates. So they started getting calls just after 1 a.m. These were alarms coming out of SCADA letting him know that that power was out at a site or communications had gone down. They're not necessarily system upsets that customers are going to notice. And in fact, we had 0 customer impacts last night during this storm. And that's due to our robust system and the lower demands that we have this time of year. So that's really good news. But a lot of folks worked through the night to make sure that none of those customers did experience impacts. So we had a couple of pump stations that lost power and their emergency generators started to run those pumps. But we can actually go through an extended period of time this time of year without pumping because we have sufficient storage in our pressure zones. Well, there's one especially critical location. It's the top of Cooper Mountain, where we pump directly to service. So we don't have a tank that's higher than those customers. So we pump to pressurize that part of the system. And that's actually one of the sites that lost power. So that generator is very critical. It came on and ran as intended, and was able to keep that section of our system in pressure. We checked all of our sites throughout today, looking for storm damage, working through some of these SCADA issues. When we lose power at a site that doesn't have pumping, that doesn't have a huge power demand, we'll always have backup batteries on that location that can keep those electrical functions running, keep SCADA communicating as long as the network is in place, the communications that are typically through a franchise utility. So no storm impacts to our sites, no trees down on fences or buildings, things like that. So really, our system got through this storm pretty well. You might remember a winter storm a couple years ago where we had a lot more impacts. So this was a good event to test our system, but our folks did really well. Customers didn't have any impacts. And that's, I'd like to thank the folks that on staff here over the past 50, 60 years that have designed the system that we have today, and the elected officials that have been, made those investments in resilient storage. And so it's really paid off for our customers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so our partners at the Joint Water Commission have been keeping us informed about their efforts out at the Fern Hill Water Treatment Plant. So there's been some issues on the power grid. And if you happen to look at PGE's outage map, the impacts of this storm were over multiple counties. So Estacada and farther east, south beyond Yamhill County. So a really big part of the state was impacted by this. And so the power grid is having some struggles. And one of those areas that we noticed that was at the Joint Water Commission plant. So they never lost utility power for a duration of time, but it was fluctuating enough to where they actually had some fuses blow. And that temporarily took some of their finished water pumps out of service. And so they made the decision this afternoon to switch over to the backup generator that was installed out there, 8 years ago now, because that provides a more steady state power supply to run the plant. So they're still running on that right now. We had messages from them just in the lead up to this meeting. So they're going to wait till the grid stabilizes, switch back to shore power when that happens, so that they can kind of minimize those upsets. But there's plenty of water available from the JWC. Again, demands are low. They were anticipating this event. They filled their finished water storage to be ready. So again, no impacts to partners related to that.
Just out of curiosity on JWC, and maybe it's a better question for JWC or Hillsborough. Are those backup generators exercised regularly?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yep, just like ours. Yeah, I don't know the exact cadence of that. We do it weekly. I would imagine they're on a similar, and actually those generators at the Fern Hill plant are operated by PGE as part of their dispatchable power generation program. So PGE has those around that they can turn on when they need them, and in exchange for that, they maintain those and have them on that exercise cycle. Okay, I'll turn it back over to CEO Matthews.
Thank you, Pete. I thought it would be interesting just to get a real-time update from Pete, as these are the actual battles those folks are out there fighting. I thought you might find that to be interesting. With that, I'm going to turn over to Andrew Carlstrom, and Andrew is joining us remotely to give the director's report. Andrew, are you prepared to do that?
Yep.
At this point?
Prepared. Yes.
Okay, I think we will just advance the slides for you.
Okay, that works. All right, next slide. Well, good evening, President Fisher and Board of Commissioners. Tonight's report from the Customer Service Department is cold weather preparedness. Next slide. This is a timely topic given that the beginning of winter is just a few days away and cold weather is soon upon us. So I think we all know that unpredictable weather can wreak havoc on unprepared water pipes. Being prepared can make all the difference when you only have moments to react. But the good news, there are many precautions you can take now to help minimize impacts later. Next slide, please. One thing that you can do to prepare for cold weather is to find your emergency water shutoff. Some of the locations that you might find it in are the crawl space or the basement, the garage, possibly near a water heater or a laundry hookup, or outside near the home foundation. In that case, it might be protected by a concrete ring or a clay pipe. Next slide, please. Another thing you can do is to protect exposed fixtures. Closing the crawl space fence will keep cold air from circulating around exposed pipes, but do disconnect and drain hoses from outside faucets. Do turn off and drain irrigation systems and backflow assemblies. Do cover hose bibs and backflow assemblies, and do insulate hot and cold pipes in unheated areas, again, such as the garage, crawl space, or attic. Next slide, please. If there is a freeze event, open the cabinet doors to let the heat aid the pipes. Make sure you have a steady drip of cold water at an inside faucet furthest from your water meter. That'll keep the water moving and make it less likely to freeze. One thing I wanted to highlight here is make sure your water meter box is accessible. And this is important not just for winter weather events, but also for us to be able to access your meter if we read it manually. If a neighbor's away and you're next to a vacant house, notify TVWD if you suspect a leak. TVWD responds 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just call 503-848-3000, but only use 911 for fire and life-threatening emergencies. Next slide, please. If your pipes freeze, try to determine which pipes are frozen. If some faucets work but others do not, pipes in the house might be frozen. If a pipe is frozen, assume it may be broken and it'll leak when thawed. Local hardware and home improvement stores might carry leak repair supplies, but be ready to shut off your water when the line thaws. If there's no water at all to your home, call us again at 503-848-3000. Next slide, please. And more about frozen pipes. Never thaw a pipe with an open flame. Why? You might start a fire. Your pipe might burst. Instead, use hot air from a hair dryer or exhaust from a vacuum cleaner. If your pipes are frozen, contact us so we can ensure that water is flowing to your meter from your meter correctly. And please note, though, that our crews at TVWD do not fix frozen pipes that are between the water meter and the house or inside of the house. Call us 503 again, 503-848-3000, 24 hours a day. And just a reminder, it's really important to only call 911 for fire and life-threatening emergencies. Next slide, please. If a pipe breaks, shut off the water to stop the flow. If you need help, call TVWD. Then determine if it's hot or cold water. If it's hot, turn off the water to your water heater. Cold water should still be available for the rest of the house. If it's cold, turn off your main water shutoff valve. Water will not be available for the rest of the house. Then call a plumber. They can assist you with repairs to get your water back in working order. Next slide. One question we get on a not infrequent basis at TVWD is, can I shut off the water at the meter? Next slide. And the answer is no. Please leave that to TVWD. If you need to have the water shut off at the meter and you don't have a home shut off valve, contact our office. Some of the things I want to highlight here about doing it yourself. You might not do it properly. If you break it, you buy it. You might disrupt water to your neighbors, and you might be subject to a tampering fine, which is not inexpensive. Our trained professionals are available 24/7 for emergencies. Next slide. And we're here to help for winter weather events and for other things related to your water service. Look at the website, email us at customerservice@tvwd.org. Again, our phone is 503-848-3000, and I put on here also the online payment options and the phone payment options. Before I conclude tonight, I just want to highlight the work of 3 work groups that are instrumental in helping the community during winter weather events. In our department, certainly the field customer services team and also the contact center folks in customer service and billing. But I also want to highlight the really good work of the operations team in Pete Boone's department. They do an awful lot to help this community, not only in winter weather events, but throughout the year. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you out.
Well, if there are no questions, that concludes the report of the Chief Executive Officer and Management Staff. Thank you.
We move to Commissioner Communications and reports of meetings attended. Start with Commissioner Doan.
Last week I met with Dave Kreska and Paul to go over various miscellaneous items dealing with climate supply.
Commissioner Duggan.
On December 1st, had my monthly meeting with Paul Matthews. On the 2nd, we had our board work session and an executive session. On the 4th, I attended the water supply board meeting and executive session where we passed procedures for chemical procurement, received updates. On the 5th of December, I attended the Oregon League of Conservation Voters Town Hall, Senator Wyden, where he gave an update on environmental issues and things going on in Washington, D.C. On the 8th of December, I attended the Washington County Public Affairs Forum, where Professor Jim Moore gave his perspective on the state of politics based on his 30, 40 years experience, especially in the state of Oregon. Last night, I attended Washington County Committee for Citizen Involvement meeting. They talk about the CPO modernization, and there's going to be a major change in how the CPOs are organized. The number is going to be reduced, and they're going to, instead of having their own independent areas, they're going to now align with the County Board of Commissioners districts and have a whole new function that is going to be rolled out in 2026. And then tonight's meetings.
Commissioner Lysak.
On the 2nd, I attended the board work session and executive session. On the 9th of December, I had my monthly check-in with CEO Matthews and tonight's meetings.
Commissioner Sanders.
This is going to sound very repetitive. On the 2nd, the work session. On the 4th, we had our agenda planning meeting. On the 8th was my turn to meet with the CEO, and then tonight's meeting, 17th.
Going down my list, on the 20th of November, I had a call with Waylon from CFM to brainstorm about the upcoming legislative session. On the 21st, I met with a constituent over in the Metzger-Taylor's Ferry portion of the district to talk about accessing of trails near the Taylor's Ferry Reservoir. On the 2nd of December, I also was at the work session, and on the 4th, the agenda planning meeting. And then on the 5th, I also attended the OLCB Town Hall with Senator Wyden. On the 8th, I met with our CEO and the mayor of Beaverton and other local officials to talk about, to hear what Beaverton's doing about the community's response to federal immigration policies. On the 9th, I attended a session hosted by PERC and ACLU and Central Cultural that Beaverton was hosting over at the Research to learn about what nonprofits and individuals are doing in regards to federal immigration policies. On the 10th, I attended the Tigard meetup with the mayor to hear updates from the community. On the 14th, I met with Commissioner Doan. And on the 16th, it was my turn to check in with the CEO, and then tonight's meeting. Do we have any topics to be raised by commissioners? Seeing none, we will move to public comment. Sam, do we have anybody for public comment?
Not seeing any this evening.
And we will move right along to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require discussion.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion that has been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. We have adopted the consent agenda. Thank you. So we will move on to our business agenda with Justin Carlton.
Thank you, President Fisher, and good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I'd like to welcome Julie Desimone with Baker Tilly. It occurred to me as I was walking up here that some of you might be wondering who Baker Tilly is. Moss Adams, the district's auditor, has actually merged with Baker Tilly, and they're assuming the Baker Tilly name going forward. So same audit team's in place. You probably recognize Julie from years past, but we are now under contract with Baker Tilly going forward. So I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to Julie and her team. Julie, go ahead. Thank you.
You're muted, boss.
Yeah, it
We
wasn't
can hear
letting
you,
me.
Chris.
Yep. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
now we're good.
It wasn't letting me unmute. Sorry, but I just got it. So, hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce both myself, Julie Desimone, as Justin said. I've also got with me Bethany and Chris. Bethany is the audit manager on this year's engagement, and Chris is the audit senior on this year's engagement. What that means is I get to talk, but they did really the hard work during the course of the engagement. So today, what we're going to go through is we're just going to go through where we're at from the audit perspective. We're very, very close to issuance. Talk about some things that have been happening during the course of the audit, and give you communication to those required, those charged with governance. I will say too, I hope we did all talk coherently. All three of us were actually 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago, we're in Samoa. And had a very, very, very long trip home. So appreciate Justin and the team for letting us come in virtually tonight. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. We can go. So the one person I do want to put on this slide is Keith Simovic. Keith is our concurring review partner, and this is a very important part of the audit process. The reason for that is because he is what we call a cold reviewer. He's not associated with the management team. He doesn't come out for the audit, but he is somebody that reviews both of our planning, our final assessments, our risk assessment. He looks through the ACFR, the financial statements, and provides comments. And we can't clear the issuance of the financial statements until we've cleared it through Keith. So though I'm their engagement reviewer, I'm the detailed reviewer that goes through the vast majority of the audit. He's a very important part of our QC process. We are required at least every 5 years to change out the concurring reviewer. So that is something that continuously moves so that we get fresh eyes and fresh perspective on the engagement from year to year. I will also state that I think, Bethany, I believe this is your first year on the engagement as well. So she's a new and fresh reviewer to the audit process this year. Next slide, please. So our scope of services were very consistent with what we did in the previous years. So we have our annual audit. We will issue an annual audit report on the combined financial statements of TVWD. We will also issue a report on governmental auditing standards due to the federal grants that were received that exceeded $1 million within this fiscal year. We will also helped with in technical review of the financial statements for compliance, but it's also important to note that management does draft those financial statements in their entirety. Because you are in the state of Oregon, there is a required set of procedures that we need to do called the Oregon Municipal Standards. That report will go in the back of the financial statements. You will note that it does not have a Baker Tilly name on it. It has got my name on it. That's required by the state, as I am the Oregon Municipal Auditor associated with the engagement. And then we'll have in the back as well the independent report on the major federal programs. So that's over your CFA and the major federal program that will then be provided to the federal government. And then finally, we will give you in writing a lot of what we're talking about today. communication of those charged with governance. This also suffices as that communication as well. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Bethany to talk about our focus areas.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay as well. Just wanted to talk through a few of our focus areas that we look a little bit more extensively at during the audit. So our first one is work orders, specifically looking at the classification of work orders. We do a lot of procedures around understanding work orders, the timing of them, and then ensuring that those are closed out appropriately and classified appropriately on the financial statements as either non-depreciable and open work order or closed and being actively depreciated on the financial statements. Jumping to the next one, we have IT security and access. So we look a little bit deeper at what are the information systems that specifically impact financial reporting, and then also is access appropriate for those systems. So looking specifically at when someone is hired, are they given appropriate access for their role into financial systems? And then also looking at when people are terminated, are they appropriately removed from those systems that impact financial reporting? Next, we specifically look at investments and component unit reporting. The joint ventures, we are looking at those, ensuring that those are valued correctly, reported appropriately, and then, of course, disclosed appropriately in the financial statements as well. This next area, management override of controls, is something that we consider significant for all of our audits, not specifically TVWD, but just ensuring that we're looking at all of our areas of the audit, anywhere that we think there could be management override of controls. And specifically, we look at journal entry testing. So how are those journal entries being posted to the system? Who's approving those? And is that appropriate? And then also conducting fraud inquiries with management and other individuals that are involved in the process to ensure there's no concerns there. And then lastly, we look at compliance with federal laws and regulations, just as Julie was talking about, looking specifically at federal grants and doing testing to ensure that those expenditures are in line with compliance supplements. And then as well, looking at Oregon minimum standards and ensuring everything is in compliance there as well. If you want to jump to the next slide. So looking specifically at our audit opinions and reports, I guess I'll start out by saying the good news is there's no areas of concern here. So we issue our financial statement opinion, which is unmodified for the year. The government auditing standards report, as Julie and I were saying, that's specific to single audit and compliance requirements and Oregon minimum standards as well. No findings for either of those. And then lastly, the report to those charged with governance on specifically internal controls, we found no material weaknesses or areas of issue there. If you want to jump over to the next slide. Lastly, some of our summary of required communications. So a reminder of our auditor's responsibility. We're charged with communicating views about qualitative aspects of significant accounting practices, policies, estimates, and financial statement disclosures. So really looking at the financial statements, what's presented in there, and ensuring everything is disclosed appropriately. We also look at management judgments and accounting estimates. There were no new estimates in the current year other than the ones that I'll talk about in just a second. And so those are pretty consistent year over year, but we really delve into those and ensure is management's estimate of these accounting policies reasonable. I'm going to skip down to significant accounting policies. So again, like I was saying, no significant changes year over year, but there are a few fund accounting standards updates. So GASB 101, specifically around compensated absences, ensuring that the liability for compensated absences is recorded appropriately. There were some new updates to that this year, including FICA salary deferrals is the word I was looking for there. And so we really delve into management's assessment of that and had no issues or disagreements with them there. And then also GASB Statement 102, certain risk disclosures. This was issued specifically around disclosing certain concentrations in the financial statements, and we didn't find that management's implementation of this, we had any issues there. There was really no significant impact to TVWD. And then there were other accounting policies that were adopted in the year or kind of changes there. As you'll notice, I skipped over proposed audit adjustments and audit observations and recommendations. I'm going to let Julie talk a little bit about those on the next slides.
All right. So one thing we wanted to get you up to speed with, and the financial statements that are held in front of you today, we have had it's been a journey, and I know Justin can speak of this as well. But the journey has been with the federal government, and because of the way that encumbrances are happening and all of the noise at the federal level between the federal shutdown to the lack of employees or the much smaller groups, we had fully anticipated FEMA to go ahead and approve, because this has been on the table for a very long time, approve one of your grants. This is not the WWSS, this is the TVWD grant. So as we talked at the beginning of the audit, it was posted into the financial statements as both a receivable from the federal government and a revenue item. At no time did we actually think that this wasn't going to go through, because, and it's more than likely going to go through as well. But as of today, it does not look like that approval has happened at the federal level. It is literally sitting on somebody's desk, and we do not know when that's going to be approved. As such, we made the decision yesterday to go ahead and unrecord that revenue. When the approval comes through, that will be recorded into the next fiscal year. So it's an important standard. What we don't want to do is we don't want to get to a point where they don't actually approve it, and we've got an error within the financial statements. So all of the audit standards, all the accounting standards was just that we just don't record it. So we're going to go ahead and take that out of the financial statements. Management's working on that right now. As you can imagine, in any type of an ACFR, when you make an adjustment to any of the numbers, a whole bunch of pages have to change. So we're spending some time just making sure that's all fairly reflected within the financial statements. It has no impact whatsoever on debt covenants. It has no impact whatsoever on really the entity as a whole. Obviously, it has a financial impact from a just making sure that you get the FEMA funds. But ultimately, that decision was finally made because it just is not getting the kind of traction to get the kind of audit evidence we want. So that was the recommendation. Management's going to go through with that and go ahead and update their financial statements. You'll notice that if you are in those financial statements, the balance sitting on your CFA, your Schedule of Federal Expenditures, all the way in the back, is a very different balance than what was on your receivable. The reason for that is because FEMA has to obligate the funds prior to it showing up on the CFA, and we knew that was going to happen. So there's just different recognition criteria. So the hope is that they go ahead and approve it here in the near future. And then those that will come on both of your Schedule of Federal Expenditures and your revenue for grant revenue in fiscal year 26. I'm getting ahead of myself. Not 27. It's got to come before that. Justin, did you want to say anything to that?
Sure, I'll add a few comments. Thank you, Julie. Excuse me. So as you're all aware, and Paul has been briefing you on the process that we've been going through with this grant. So this is a grant that is a FEMA grant, and it's administered through OEM, through the state. We were approved for a summary amount, and the way it was organized was basically each federal year we were to apply for a certain amount that reached the total project sum that was being funded. New administration came in, things got put on pause. We worked with OEM to figure out the guidance going forward. And so because the project was actually ahead of schedule, what they had recommended was that we go ahead and actually just do the second allotment, because the first allotment had already passed in time, as a single second tranche, as opposed to breaking it up over 2 more calendar years, or 2 more federal fiscal years. And they also wanted us to go ahead and submit the quarterly reports for the expenditures that we intended to submit. So we've been submitting those quarterly reports. We've been recording those revenues that we're anticipating getting. But unfortunately, as Julie indicated, they're going back to Washington and sitting on a desk somewhere. So we're still optimistic that we will get the grant. But unfortunately, as of June 30, looking at the financial statements, there is not documentation to substantiate those revenues on the financials. And so that's why we're going through this process. Are there any questions that I can answer about that, or Julie? Thank you.
And I will say, just as a matter of course, this is we're just in an unprecedented time. This is not we haven't seen these types of delays. It's just been a compounding on compounding between administration changes to lack of personnel at the federal and somewhat state levels, but mostly at the federal level, and then the government shutdown. I will say I haven't seen a client have to work this hard to get what's due. So it's the management team. We feel very comfortable. This is at no way an association of the management team not being on top of this situation and doing everything in their power to get it moved through. It is truly the bureaucracy of what we're living through right now. All right, Chris.
Sweet. Hi, everybody. As Bethany summarized before, we are required to communicate to the board all corrected and uncorrected audit adjustments identified in the current audit period. And you will all be pleased to know that we identified no corrected audit adjustments and or uncorrected audit adjustments in the current period. Want to shout out a big thanks to Justin Carlton, Krista Wolf, and Kristen Lee for having good audit processes in place to help us get to this conclusion. Next slide, please. And as Bethany kind of went into before on the summary of required audit communications, these are the two standards that were adopted in the current year by TVWD in or for the governmental auditing standards. Here, GASB 101, compensated absences. These require a restatement of prior year balances. So I'll communicate to the board that we audited both the current year adjustment and the prior year restatements and found that those balances are fairly stated. Going a little bit into GASB 102. This is related to certain risk disclosures in the financial statements, and we identified that there was not a material impact to the TVWD financial statements for this new standard. You can go to the next slide. And tossing these ones back to Julie.
Yeah, I think this is me. So I guess we just wanted to let you know there's continuing activity at the GASB board. We haven't had much of a year off lately. It's been a lot of standards over the last couple of years, and it's continuing on. So next year is going to be an interesting one because of 103 and 104. They're really putting more onto the financial statements. If you thought your ACFR wasn't long enough, these standards are going to help take care of that and make them even lengthier. So there is some improvements on the financial reporting model that may help, but the disclosure of certain capital assets is actually going to be it's not a hard one to implement, minus the fact that sometimes our systems don't have the right information of disaggregation that they want to look at. But ultimately, it's just going to take some time. So a shout out to the accounting crew. They're on top of these, starting to assess both of these standards. But this is what we'll be talking to you about this year. And I cannot wait for the day that I get to have a blank slide in front of you that maybe we can take a breather for one of these years. But that's not going to be this year or next year. I think that is it. I think that's what we have. Yeah, this was the thank you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it was a very good audit. We are finishing all of our not tieouts. We're finishing the restated financial statements at this time, but we'll make the 12/31 deadline for sure. In fact, I think we're done on our side and just looking for the final small QC procedures to finish the audit process. We do really appreciate the entire team and appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you,
Any
Julie.
questions? Yeah.
Seeing no questions from the board, so I will let our Baker Tilly team get some sleep. Really appreciate you guys' attendance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before I move off this topic, I just want to say that our new controller, Krista Bosserman, was going to be attending tonight, but unfortunately she's also under the weather, so she was not able to be here. But I just want to say what a tremendous job her and the team did. So this was her first audit here at TVWD, and she's only been on board for about 7 or 8 months, and she just dove right in. She implemented the new GASB standards and really just owned the process significantly well. And so that the teams worked really hard. As Julie indicated, this late revision will result in new financial numbers, and those trickle throughout the annual comprehensive financial report. So we're going through that now, making the updates, and once that's complete and Baker Tilly has completed their review, we'll make sure that we get copies of those documents over to you for your awareness as well.
Looks like I will be convening the TVWD Local Contract Review Board. So we are convened as that body now, and we have Justin Carlton again.
It is the Justin Carlton show tonight. So thank you, commissioners. We're at the culmination of what's been a couple months long process now. A couple months for this group, about 2 years for Heather Spate, our procurement and contracts administrator. So big hurdle that we're getting to this point, and it's very significant. I just want to thank her for her efforts in getting us to this point. So in November, we brought forward a proposed update to the district's local contract review boards. And the goal that we wanted to achieve there was a couple of things. First, we wanted to improve the layout and format of the document. The document itself had been in existence probably for about 20 years. I don't remember the exact date. But it was definitely aging out, and especially since we've adopted new branding guidelines, new templates for documents, this was a good opportunity for us to go through and modernize that document, improve the format, improve the ease of use. So now we have a functional table of contents linked to the different sections. The flow of the document is significantly improved. And so in terms of just the actual document itself, it's much more usable and modernized and a workable document going forward. We also wanted to modernize some of the specific rules. So we have implemented some amendments to the LCRB rules as the legislature has made changes. Some of those rule changes created situations where we had favorable situations for procurement setup in the rules that were no longer particularly beneficial. So we wanted to realign those things and really kind of modernize the rules in a way so that we were maintaining effective economic procurements, effective financial controls, but also being pragmatic in the way that we're procuring things so that we're being efficient with our customers' resources. So this was a pretty significant revision, and due to that, we wanted to have an extensive review process where we engaged the board along the way. So that process started back on November 4th with the work session where the proposed rule changes were presented by Heather Spate. And so we went through a summary of those changes, and then we distributed a draft of the LCRBR rules on November 13th with the board agenda packet that month. And then additionally on November 26th, the special procurement findings, which actually have a separate step that we'll cover after this, were distributed to the board in the agenda packet, followed up with an additional review on December 2nd, where staff and legal counsel were able to address any questions from the board or any comments at that time. And we did not receive any specific questions other than the dialogue that happened during the work session. So we're pleased to be moving forward in the process at this point. So if there aren't any other questions, acting as the local contract review board, staff does recommend that the board adopt resolution 2425, replacing the local contract review board rules with the items as Exhibit A attached to or included in the resolution.
Check, are there any questions? Do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2425, a resolution adopting updating local contract review board?
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We are on to the second part of the actions for the local contract review board to consider, and this is our special procurement classification findings. So as I mentioned in the prior presentation, that we did distribute what we call the special class findings to the board last month, and along with the agenda packet this month. So within the now adopted local contract review boards, in section 9.6, there are 17 special classes of procurements which are identified to be exempt from the bidding process. I'm not going to go through all these things, but some examples are things that are kind of common sense or pragmatic in nature. So for example, advertising contracts. So when Justin Dyke is working on a campaign to let our customers know about the upcoming change in water supply, he's got to work with Meta. That's how we channel out these communications. And so it doesn't make sense to do an open procurement for that. So we include that as an example of a special procurement. Or for example, equipment repair, where we've got specialized equipment where we have staff who are very familiar with it and know about the details, know about the intricacies of who can help repair these things and what services would be efficient to procure to help get our assets back in order. And so it makes sense to be able to allow us the flexibility to just directly appoint or directly contract with vendors that are going to get us going in as quickly as possible. So in order to have these special classes in effect, the LCRB needs to adopt what are called findings that establish the public benefit of using these alternative procurement procedures and the potential effects on favoritism and competition for the classes that are identified. So the classes, as I mentioned, are included in section 9.6 of the recently adopted LCRB rules. And then the findings themselves are attached to the resolution as Exhibit A. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. However, if not, the staff recommendation is that, once again, acting as the LCRB, the board adopt resolution 2525, establishing the findings for special procurement classes as described in section 9.6 of the LCRB rules adopted December 17th.
Check for questions first. Any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2525, a resolution adopting and establishing findings for special procurement classes for certain contracts and purchases?
So moved.
Motion?
Second?
Can I have a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, commissioners.
We will now return to our regular TVWD business meeting. And then move into an executive session. I will now close the regular session of the board and will convene an executive session. Will the district recorder please read the executive session?
I certainly will. An executive session of the board is called under ORS 192.6602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.